You can always ask us too. Like, hey, everybody, did you know X, Y, and Z? And you can take a quick informal poll of your class. I don't mind that. But this is the advice that I give Amira, like if I was meeting with Amira in a conference, right? So the first reason, more affordable access. Affordable access. All right, so she's following her own organizational pathway that she telegraphed through her thesis, right? She says the lack of access to health care that minorities, particularly Black Americans, face can mostly be attributed to institutionalized racism. Wow. Institutionalized racism is described by the Merriam-Webster, and she just means Merriam-Webster's dictionary. So I'd say, hey, just tinker with the phrasing here, but I know exactly what you mean. And also work on capitalization, because Webster is a name. It's an official name of that dictionary. I do something like this instead. And then, of course, I'd fix the quote. Make sure it's hugging the right direction. There we go. So my notes here are minor. What I'm seeing, this is a 2,300 word essay, but it actually isn't. When I talk about 1,500 words, I'm talking about from introduction to conclusion. And from introduction to conclusion, she got just in there at 1925. I said no longer than 2,000 words. She did it. She, no more than 2,000 words from intro to conclusion. She had a lot of sources. Look at that. She says, the institutionalized racism says the oppression of a racial group to the advantage of another is perpetuated by inequity within interconnected systems. And then, of course, she's got some floating punctuation, too. The definition fails to encapsulate just how much this concept affects Black people and the access they have today. For hundreds of years, she says Black people were denied access to certain places and resources because of their skin color. So she's giving some background. When segregation ended, Black communities were created in order for Black people to have a place to cohabitate without the white borders. And then you can see this as we go. I'm not going to read every sentence. She's still talking about communities that are poorly funded and areas without resources. Let's see. Like without sufficient access to hospitals and doctors' offices nearby. So that's her argument. A study, and then she goes into actual data that she researched. A study found that even after getting access to medical care, Blacks are often less likely to receive appropriate medical treatment in comparison with whites. Now, this quote seems to perhaps fit the inequality section. So in my feedback to Amira, what I would say is, okay, if you're talking about affordable access, I think distance fits. If part of the study that she was researching said in some of these more poor, marginalized communities, think of access to healthcare on a Native American reservation as just like one example of this. The closest healthcare, urgent care could be 100 miles. I'm not the type. If you're living like in the Four Corners region and you're living in a very rural space, even if you're within a community and not like farmsteading or homesteading, right? So she could say that distance costs money for those smaller communities. That's where the financial argument could be made, and I would go with that. That makes a lot of sense, right? She talks about, let's see, having no place for good doctors, medical professionals, balk at working in these places. Oh, okay. So where she could have gone in this paragraph as well could be for Americans who are struggling financially, depending on income status and other things. They may be on Medicaid, but maybe there's lack of access to as many physicians because those physicians don't partner with Medicare and Medicaid, right? So there's more details to be had in this section, but she's off to a really good start. That's why this is a nice, imperfect, but really nice midday chapter. Okay? The next section is about biased medical findings, and you can see that she had one good paragraph. I maybe break this into two. It's exactly a page length, but I think you can break it into two. But now we're on point 2, reason why. She says diversity in healthcare fields needs to increase. So So that biased medical information taught and believed by medical professionals can be overrated. This is where I think she has her strongest arguments. She talks about the research from Sabin that talked about how medical professionals have misconstrued information about different ethnicities based on antiquated medical textbooks. And then she sort of has a little bit of, she has a specific argument, and then she has some background for that. And I was talking to her about, I saw an example that a medical student had to, a black medical student had to recreate textbooks for dermatology because all of the examples in their really well-known medical school textbook only showed white skin. How are you going to be able to diagnose particular skin cancers, for example, if you're not showing what that can look like on different skin types, right? Or different skin shades. So I would give her, and this is how you can give ideas to your classmates. You could say, hey, did you see this research? And you could provide a link about medical and then you just include the URL, whatever that URL is. That's a phenomenal bit of feedback. That's engaging more deeply. An excellent point, or spelling error, right? I think I saw a comment. Let me just make sure. Oh, okay. No, so that's how I want you to engage. You know, with 4 comments, a page that means that reflects you really read this. And that you're working on some of those concepts. What if, like, for example, Amira writes with really nice topic sentences. But what if she just started with a lot of data and she didn't orient ears to what that paragraph is about? You could say, hey, I think you need a topic sentence here. You're not writing that topic sentence. You're leaving it to the author to make decisions on what to include and what not to include. Okay?
Judge, jury.
So you can see the depth of her content, you can see her research, some of the spacing issues are there. It looks like she's ending the paragraph on a data point, and if you see that, somebody ends with a data in the last sentence, you can make a recommendation. Remember, we sandwich information. So you could say, this means is a suggestion to end on analysis. How does that data point support her argument about expanding diversity of medical students and medical professionals? Right? You can see a counter argument a little bit later on. The transitional word while, it's a shift to something that doesn't agree with the things that you've said before. Words that are similar to that are like although. However, we're moving from all of the prior arguments to something new. So this is a signal to me that she's on her counterpoint, her counter argument. She says this. Well, it's hard for people who blatantly disagree with needing more diversity in the healthcare system. It's so hard to find people who have this type of mindset.
Swap.
For example, in 2008, now we're in the data, a woman named Abigail Fisher applied for entrance to the University of Texas and was denied entry. She went on to sue the school for discrimination due to affirmative action laws that have been put in place to allow for a higher percentage of minority students to get into college. So Abigail Fisher, if you remember, the report was a white girl who sued the college's affirmative action policy saying and penalized her for her skin color. Abigail Fisher is one of many people who agree that affirmative action is discriminatory. These people, and then she says, I would add something like the word but, just for clarity. And then she refutes Abigail's position. Not only does the subsequent affirmative action ban decrease minority admission because of the need for a degree in any given medical field, it directly correlates to decreased diversity in that market. These people, she's talking about Fisher. She should say something like people like Fisher. They really take that into account. They think that more than one enrollment enrollment, but they really take into account how little that percentage of they took up any given space. And then she talks about the population at Fisher School in comparison to the I think her reputation added data and was a masterpiece. Like, wow. She really refuted it. So you want to see an example of refutation? Look at what Amira did. I really like what she did. Then we got our conclusion, and she signals in conclusion or in summary or to sum up. The signal phrases, using those words to show I'm about to tap out here. She rephrases her thesis. It's not the exact same phrasing as the introduction. It's a little bit different.
Hey, there's a globe on your supporter.
Just allows that to sink in. And then talks about different organizations that are working for business. The recommendation, perhaps subtle, but readers can get involved. So overall, I really like this. I was able to give her feedback and help her develop it. The final thing we're going to look at before we score her together is her works cited. So you can see on this works cited, she's got this. Remember, this was written last year. So the paper's SEO. And her first source is Gray and McNamara. What you can do, let's help with our classmates' documentation. I think I remember seeing Gray. Okay. Gray's mentioned twice. Fantastic. Gray and McNamara. Gray and March. Okay, fantastic. So you have two authors, you always name them both. You wouldn't just say Gray said that, you say Gray and McNamara. It's from a journal called Frontiers in Public Health. Volume, copyright year, document number, and when I highlight this section, what I expected, I'm just going to take it and I'm going to plug it right into. I have to share my browser. There it is. It pulls the article.
Can you hop off Fantastic, please? It's not working.
If you have document indicator URLs, they need to work. Every one of your sources needs to be named. Did you read the history.com? It was named. You can just do this is something you can do on your own work too. Jackson and Garcia, that was named. Was right name? Would be a White et al. Yeah, White and everybody else. That would be correct because there's a lot of authors in that White source. But some of the things that she did not do, she didn't alphabetize her sources yet. It looks like the first page is alphabetized, but she then added more sources. White should be probably the last one. With all these other additional sources. So a reorganization, a proofreading in here for proper spacing. That's like the last day. So how would I grade this? Let's go into the essay. Okay.
Right there.
She has an introduction that warms readers up. Uses a hook, has a thesis. She had a conclusion that received a thesis in French language and provided some final thoughts and insight. Give her a 10. She had a thesis with a plan development. Give her a 10. And I really liked seeing it twice in the introduction and conclusion. If you go in and look at her paper, her topic sentences are often related to the thesis. The first reason why, my argument. The second reason why, that kind of thing.
You'll have to keep fighting until we
Sufficient relevant data and argumentation, yeah. I mean, she had it. I would maybe give her 34 to 35. There were some very minor places where I think she could bolster it, like in that first section, but the second and third were really strong. And her evidence and her data in the counter-argument are really good. Her organization, she had good topic sentences, she had good data. I felt that organization was fine. Documentation was pretty good. It wasn't perfect Emily style. So give her maybe a 13.5 or 14, reorganize. And her grammar mechanics, I'd probably give her like an 8 out of 10 for this version. Because of the spacing issues and where the punctuation was, we want to be a little bit more consistent on that. A little bit of the phrasing, but nothing wild, nothing significant. This would be an A paper.
Well, you can't expect a little
And I modeled that because that's what you can do. You can use this rubric on your own essay. You can use this rubric to give feedback to a peer. Okay, so let's see, is everybody now in the peer-reviewed space? I only see 11 replies. That means many of you have not posted. How many people are in class? There's 17 students, so 6 of you haven't even posted your draft for me yet. Mihir, did you have a question?
Yes, Professor, I did. So for the draft, the rough draft, I currently have 2 pages down. Can I add 1 more page, or is 2 enough?
It needed to be it should have been a full draft. Like
Okay.
legitimately, I think I mentioned on Monday, aim for 4 pages or more just to
Okay.
get it close. So there's enough information for your classmates to give you feedback, right? But you post whatever you have,
Okay.
right?
I'll make corrections and then
Well,
like.
I want you to know, hold on. I want everybody to post what they have. Because what I mentioned at the beginning of class was, I not posted at the beginning of class, right? We're now 45 minutes in. So there's many of you that have not posted. And I don't want you working on your document when you should be working on giving feedback to your peers. So just post what you have. This is an opportunity to see what you could be missing. And I want you to spend that time on your peers' document. For essay 1, my strong recommendation is to use bubble comments and Word like I demoed. Okay, so that's textual feedback. If you already know how to do that, you're really good with that, and you would prefer instead to use Studio and to create video feedback, kind of like how I gave you video